Welcome to another episode of Breaking into Cybersecurity Leadership, where we talk to cybersecurity leaders about developing our next generation. Today, we have David, who will be sharing his experience of getting into cybersecurity leadership and sharing his tips and tricks for you. Before we get started, call for everyone. If you're seeing this, share this with others because we do need a diverse set of leaders as well as a diverse set of individual contributors within the cybersecurity environment so that we can tackle the complex problems of today and tomorrow. David, tell us a little bit about your background and what got you into cybersecurity.
All right, my journey into cybersecurity is a very interesting one. Having started my career in core technology communications, pure signaling, uh, long distance communication stuff, antennas, and all of those things. That was the beginning. After my first degree in electronics computer engineering, telecoms was my passion and my love at the time. So went round, did external line plan, switching, some routing, so the basic stuff. I was CCNA, CCNP certified. Worked with a few organizations in network administration and all of those early stuff. And somewhere at the fourth to the fifth year in my career, I began to notice a couple of things. There was a lot of prestige and respect around security. That was the days of the Cisco CCDP certification, design security professional, CCSP, security professional. There was a lot of respect and prestige along those lines. And I just get excited anytime the CCSP guys came in. They came in only once in a while and they collected fat monies that the CCMP guys weren't collecting. And I was like, what is going on here? These guys and their routers are very expensive. The switches are very expensive and they don't particularly do too much. They're just there. Not much was, but they got paid very highly. And so that was also about the time when the telecoms revolution in my country started, where we moved from the PSTN network to the core cellular technology. I had the benefit and the advantage of being part of that transition and having understanding about external line and also at the transmission centers, the long distance transmission centers. I got interested in security after an incident as a young engineer where heads began to roll. There was a breach in the switch, the billing platform of the NITEL. NITEL is Nigerian Telecommunications Limited. There was a breach in billing, and that breach was very significant. So everyone caught cold. Everyone was very troubled. And that started. They had to implement some security features in the switch, and that began my foray and my interest beyond traditional signaling, beyond common channel signaling, 7 systems, and the common things we do both in switching and routing. That's apart from the traditional network on the telco cellular network side. So I read up a few of the chapters in the security professional book, and that sensitized. Then we had, as a network administrator, one of the clients I worked for, we had a security breach where someone's password was breached. As a young network administrator, the amount of pressure that came with it, the user issues, the stress, and how much management heaped energy on further securing those networks and those issues. And then it was amazing for the first time. It was an eureka moment for me for the first time when I saw how much potentially we could lose. In that case, we didn't lose much, but how much we could potentially lose was a very big issue for me. I kept turning and tossing on my bed. What if because this is a very senior person who had access to very systems. He was the person who authorized everything. When payment it's going to go in hundreds of millions, he was the one to go to. So I was like, wait a minute, guys. What if something happens to this man and his password is compromised, he's beaten up, and his password is compromised, and we have to pay heavily for it? That began my strong journey and my strong desire to ensure that I mastered cybersecurity. So I began to get interested, do conferences, read more around it. And that started the journey for me. And of course, I made a good transition into project program management, where I now implement projects. And for whatever reason, cybersecurity projects started getting thrust at me, strengthening infrastructure, toughening up infrastructure, improving identity, systems, and all of that. And then along the line, I stumbled also into card transactions and the import of those and the amount of fraud that happens, or the amount of fraud that industry is open up to, because geometric rise in the transaction rates on the planet. The internet has become the place. You do everything online. You seldom buy. I use my phone, the NFC here right now, to all the way from taxis to eating at the restaurant to ordering something on Amazon. Everything is up. It's basically on. But then at this time, it was still starting. And so all of that energy, and as I observed the future trends and the challenges around cards, I got more interested in cybersecurity. And I've been on this journey in total for about 2 decades. I've been there, done that. I've worked within the ERP domain, rolled out ERPs, rolled out infrastructure on the technical side. Been here, done that, and it's been a very pretty amazing experience. Loads of lessons, loads of very difficult moments where you had to answer questions of conscience and think about the future when the future has not happened. How do you prepare for a future you can't see, you can't crystallize, you don't understand the risks because of the limitation of where you are. So this is a major challenge I've also seen in my journey over the years. How do you prepare for volume of transactions that suddenly balloon up?
Yeah. Thinking about the future is definitely important. As you think about your journey, why did you decide to pivot to become a cybersecurity leader versus staying an individual contributor?
I decided on the leadership route because anyway, leadership was thrust at me. In my role as a project manager, I have been forced to, whether I like it or not, I have to take leadership. From a communication standpoint, I had to be comfortable, for example, with addressing the elephant in the room, having difficult conversations that nobody was willing to have, collaborating with difficult stakeholders, because the success of and the failure of the project rests on me generally. Typically, I'm in charge of scheduling and ensuring that things happen as at when due. When you are in those kind of roles, you are like the proverbial dancer who cannot look at the noise of the market. You got a job, and everyone depends on you as a driver to take them from point A to point B. Now, that requires a lot of leadership, a lot of excellence, a lot of dedication and passion beyond being an individual. And anyway, I enjoyed the attention. It's not very easy being a leader, I must confess to you, because then you are much more aware of your own weaknesses and your follies are heightened. And indeed, your personal, private failing moments can be easily amplified and you can cause damage at a bigger level. Now, awareness of those kind of things make it very sobering and make it difficult for one to gloss over. But all in all, I'm grateful for the opportunity first to serve and to keep serving in leadership position. Because anyway, when I talk online, I find myself in conversations all of a sudden taking the lead, not because I want to demonstrate superior thoughts or I want to show myself off, but it's coming more from a heart of service, a heart of help, a heart of a responsibility that things could be better. And that is the driving force. Although over the years, that has been misunderstood and people think you want to show off. People think you have a desire to make others look stupid. But no, it's just that you just want things to be better than they were. And you think we can all benefit from a better system. And with no hidden agenda, this is what thrust me into the leadership positions. I found myself either in the project realm or in the technology field or even in thought leadership that I champion a lot.
So as you look to grow your leadership skills, what, in your view, are the critical skills needed for a cybersecurity leader?
That's a very deep question right there. It's multidimensional, Chris. That's very deep. Let me say this. First of all, you must want it. You must want it. And that is not a skill you gather in any textbook or a skill in any material. It's pure personal desire. When your PDI, personal desire index or indicator, which is a measure of your quotient, which is a measure of PDQ, personal desire quotient, when it is below a certain number that is beyond the equilibrium of the industry and where you are in your life, don't take the leadership position. When your internal willingness versus the industry equilibrium and the strength of events in the environment is at a higher level of turbulence than you can allow, for example, as one of the factors we are measuring within your life at that time, don't take that position. When your desire is higher than that equilibrium point and the higher to lead, this is genuine desire, not ambition, because there's a difference between ambition and assistance. I call it assistance, the willingness to be good and to help, the willingness that everybody trusts me to stand at this door, and the willingness to serve, rather than I want to be the most for the purposes of aggrandizement and size ego and all of those kind of things. And somewhere in the future of your leadership, that metal will be tested. You will either be converted to a more humble leader or more authentic leader, or you will grow much more narcissistic or something, and eventually your time will pass without you having left any legacy, or you will learn the lesson, or nature happens to you, whatever happens X. But I think that personal desire is the place to start from. It's even a calibrator of how well you will do, so that I don't sidetrack the conversation. So the rule is, the higher your personal desire to lead, especially from the positive psychology standpoint, the higher it is than that equilibrium point for the industry and the environment you are in at large, the more your chances of success as a leader. That's the first one.
Can I stop you there? Because
Okay.
that's something that I have not heard about. For those that are looking to learn more about this, where did you find this from, or where did you learn this so that they could dig into this themselves?
I do a lot of personal introspection and I try to find my answers. I try to find my North Pole. Of course, I've read a lot of things, but it's rooted in the materials of self-awareness, to be aware of your desires, self-belief, first of all, self-awareness, self-belief, self-esteem, acceptance, and self-promoting, and yet being selfless.
Makes sense.
Now,
Yeah, I'm a big supporter of of having your North Pole as well to help.
yeah, exactly. So having my North Pole and then not following the tide on the outside, but having my North Pole on the inside was the way I arrived at this particular solution. That my personal desire indicator, based on all of these foundations of my self-understanding and awareness of where I am, must be beyond a certain threshold of the entropy or chaos of the environment. How difficult is the leadership role? How difficult is it to be a leader in that time? What are the challenges the organization or the context is facing? Who are the players there? Would they be willing to give me a chance to succeed or fail? Is the context favorable? If you're going to be a leader in a place where you don't understand the language, maybe you should not take up the role. Maybe you should not desire to be a leader there. You don't even understand the language. You can't even converse, and you cannot even engineer meaning beyond communication. Communication is one thing, but meaning is when David is able to put the exact signal in his mind, in Chris's mind, and Chris's response in such a manner that David knows that what he was originally intended to pass across has been understood. This is basic communication engineering. So if you're battling language, for example, then maybe you should humbly not take the organization or that leadership role up. So those are the entropy factor, the quotient, the threshold points, for example. Another one, for example, is if you don't understand the culture or you cannot fit into the culture, culture will always eat strategy for lunch and dinner and breakfast. Culture will always destroy the strongest of our good, lofty ideas. So as a leader, as a cyber leader, if you don't have the cultural intelligence to lead in that environment, maybe you should pursue that. But there are complement skill sets like cultural adaptability. If you are culturally adaptable, you know you are strong on the agility leg. which is another thing that being agile or understanding agile frameworks helps you to do anywhere cyber leader. So it's not a doom and gloom thing. If you notice that there's a gap between where your personal desire index is and where the level or the threshold level is, then you can bridge the gap and yet you can lead. So it's not, but it's to be aware that there's a gap between what your personal desire is. And some of the person's desires mislead them. Your desire, you may not be ready. You may not have the competence. So desire is empty if it does not pass through. Personal desire is empty if it does not pass through the very lens of self-discovery, awareness, acceptance, then esteem. And then before you now go to self-promoting. In all of this, yet being selfless, so that you're not full of yourself, but you want to serve and really solve a problem. And if we were to choose between Chris and I will vote for Chris if Chris is a better candidate than I am to help us through the bridge. Chris knows how to swim. I don't know how to swim. So this organization is at the point within their corporate life cycle where they are rolling out a lot of new products. And Chris has had experience in products rollouts, and Chris understands the cybersecurity challenges and the risks that happen in that particular sector. Why do I want to rob the organization of his expertise? Because I want to earn a few dollars, or I want to be the known guy, or I want to be the one who is leading the team. That's wanton ego. On the day something critical will happen, then to appear that I don't know how to navigate that bend, Chris is a better driver there. Why don't I give him the leadership? You've been in podcasting for a while, and there's audience intelligence, for example, that you have around the cyber regime and cyber world. Why don't I want Chris to lead the conversation? Because everyone has what they are useful for. Even in cyber leadership, one has a use. Every leader has the moment and defined occasion of your use. There's your hour in leadership, and do not stay longer than those hours. That's also a subtle counsel there. Your tenure may be 2 years. You may be a very strong risk manager, or you are a strong infrastructure deployment leader because you have project management and agile understanding like me. And you could actually be a strong people leader because the team needs more confidence, as they need someone who is a CISO or a cyber lead that understands that level of energy and intelligence, if you get what I mean. So at the end of the day, wisdom is to select your occasion and moment of brilliance and know your own leadership DNA and leave that ethos and not be driven by external opportunity. Again, that quotient, personal desire that is intelligent. So we can call it intelligent personal desire that's willing to be personally developed to meet the threshold and need of the occasion, and the willingness to live when the time is due. Not necessarily when the ovation is loudest, when the time is due for that occasion.
So it sounds like, if I could paraphrase, understanding your leadership abilities and your readiness to be a leader is one of those core critical skills in your perspective. Are there any other critical skills?
Yes, there is what is called CUDOIL, or situational intelligence or awareness. The ability to understand situations quickly and the ability to take decisions quickly that will help. You need it in cyber security leadership. You cannot afford not to have it. But how do you get the problem with experience is that you gain good experience from bad experiences.
There's cheap experience and there's expensive experiences.
Thank you.
Cheap
I like that. That's true. Thank
expensive
you.
experience
Thank you. So every time someone listens to Chris Foulon a podcast, that's good experience. You listen to David, or you subscribe to any of the seminars I do in cyber leadership, or anything that you do, or we organize something together and someone listens, good experience. You don't want to wait until crisis happens. For example, I've seen cyber leaders who don't know they are excellent panickers. I've met CISOs who are panickers. That is, their panic profile is on the roof. They panic, and then they panic and they pile budgets at panic. So they feel paranoia. And then they get before the executive team, and their leadership communication skills and futuristic skills begin to be torn to pieces, only because the excellent people, when there is no tension, they can take clear decisions. But because they are good panickers or warriors, they heap budgets and they heap reinforced steel, they toughen up architecture, toughen up infrastructure, toughen up And management is asking, but there's been no incident in the past 5 years. Why do I need another server or another thing this year? And the guy goes, that's because I'm good, I'm doing my job. They're like, so that means we don't need it. And it won't be in that frame of mind if not for his personal panic. But again, some amount of panic is good for a CISO, because in the school of cyber warfare, as in real-time warfare, only the paranoid survive. So some amount of paranoia is needed in cybersecurity, but at the same time, it's also very difficult for you to be extra paranoid when you are leading people and not use panic to drive the bus off the road. So panic profiling, for example, you must understand your panic profile from situational awareness perspective. In a situation, what's going on? What are the main things? What's the most profitable action? Which level of panic am I supposed to switch on? Medium, low, or high? How do you apportion or identify the necessary effort or response to an incident in a personal profile? So all of those internal readiness work must be there. Then I dare say that leaders must have the 4 grill things, the 4 of leadership: mentor, coach, facilitator, trainer. Mentor, coach, not necessarily in that order. If you want me to order it, coach, mentor, coach, facilitator, mentor, trainer. Coach, facilitator, mentor, trainer. Training is the last one, but many leaders try to do training first.
Yeah, that makes sense. Some of the other skills that I've found over the years to be really critical, and maybe I'll ask you to rate yourself from a scale of 1 to 5, is delegation. How would you describe delegation and rate yourself 1 to 5?
On delegation, I'll probably rate myself 4. That's because I've done some wrong delegations. I'm like, how did I make that mistake? But I rate myself 4 on delegation. Because I'm blessed with a rare ability to see people and watch and observe without any bias until I understand what's going on. I've learned that over the years. I watch people carefully and I'm very non-judging in the beginning to ensure that I understand what's really going on. And I'm also sufficiently friendly. I try to be friendly to work across the bit to understand, even if I see an external behavioral pattern breached over a period, what is behind it? And is this something that can be brought up in a direct conversation, or is something we're going to use indirect conversations to deal with? So on delegation, I have about 4/5 in total, because I still have some hits and misses despite my method. Number one with delegation is that there are tasks to delegate and there are things you cannot delegate. The wisdom to know what to delegate and what not to delegate is very important for a cyber leader. Number 2.
And yeah, next, collaboration. How would you rate yourself in collaboration on a scale of 1 to 5, and why?
Collaboration, I rate myself again 4, because I've done some bad collaborations in the past. And I am a collaboratively shy person now because I've had some bad experiences. So I do more rigorous interviewing. And interestingly, I do collaboration intelligence coaching. So there are people who come to me and say, I want to collaborate with this guy. What do you think? Because I have some intuitive coaching practice I do by the side. And I'll just do an analysis and say, what do you want? Do you want a person-to-person profiling, or you want a business-to-business, whether your business and that business can collaborate? And in most of the cases, 9 out of 10 times I get it correct. That's for others. But for me, I'm slower because I would watch, ask questions, understand the intent. But the key is to contract in the beginning. That's my summary of it. Contract what the transmission will be like. Contract what the what is going to be the recipient's expectation, what is the sender's expectation, what will be the handshake in the middle. Design the contracting of the collaborative effort, put parameters at it, let it be well defined. When issues happen that are not covered within the framework you've set up, go back again and look at the framework. This works all the time. I've seen it work all the time. All the time. It works.
And for communication, how would you rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 5 for communication, and why?
I give myself 4.5/5. And that's because I don't want to be proud. I have seen a lot of, I understand communication at the human engineering, human fiber level. I have developed, I've because I want to help people communicate better. And I've seen cybersecurity leaders stumble on communication a lot. Technical leaders generally over the years. I've been having the blessing of being in many boardrooms, even as a young engineer, just sitting down to observe. And the power of erasing one word and putting another word. The power of erasing a sentence, the power of changing a body language. For example, I don't know whether you know that technical people communicate lower value without them knowing, just by body language and presence. The average chief marketing officer will always earn higher than the CTO and the CISO and they're all on the same level. What typically happens is that technical leaders are communicating without knowing they're even communicating. Body language, conversations. Watch when a CMO wants to talk, or a chief product officer, someone that's in the C-suite on the commercial side of the business. There is some order, there is some practice. Because I have worked in the marketing regime, I've worked in the core marketing comms group, the largest one in West Africa, by the way. I saw what goes into those things. Technical people are so wire and technicality concerned that they don't know that we should practice communication, that we should literally practice, go before the mirror. If it's a real big presentation to a board, it's a budget presentation, go nitty gritty, ask for feedback, present within your team first before you go for the bigger one where you're going to defend them. But many CISOs or CTOs or CEOs will just put together a slide the morning of the presentation, they just move some things around, and then they go there and present. And typically there's a response. So for communication, I rate myself 4.5 over 5, and I also help to communicate better. And lastly, I have some unusual insight. Like I told you, what is in my mind and vice versa must come into your mind, and we must get feedback that we got what the other party was saying. That is where communication has happened. And I understand the nuances, and communication is the biggest tool to adjust behavior.
And how would you describe the skill of influence, and why is it so important in cybersecurity?
Influence is very important. Influence, in fact, one of the things I'm researching now, because crime as a service has become big, and crime as a service will become big. Second reason why I'm studying this, the science of influence and psychology of influence in cybersecurity, is that criminal gangs have moved into advanced persistent nature. They've morphed. And there's the nature of advanced persistent threats. And we say that organizations that there are two kinds of organizations, those that have not been hacked and those that will be hacked eventually. The other factor why influence is important is that we are having more energy and more order on the side of the criminals, and law enforcement is trailing behind, and litigation is also trailing behind as a global trend. So we need to begin to learn adversarial influence strategies so that we can go beyond just influencing our team to influencing the criminal behavior. We should go to the point where we will be able to do prescriptive analytics that will almost help us to know where the crime will come from. Because the tools that are going to be available to criminals that's been available since year 2020, COVID heightened it, and that will begin. There are people that commit $1,000 a month. They work. And then people commit $1,000 a month, and 10 of them can come together into hacking and exploring breaches. And they are willing to commit that kind of money for 5 years. Trust me, if they keep at it and hire professionals and they decide to go into crime as a service, they will begin to succeed. So how do we begin from a security standpoint to influence criminal behavior? What are the technologies that will help us to lead them in a certain direction? And that's an area, that's a niche area, adversarial influence management, where we are able to use influence tactics so that we will be able to cage crime. For example, the concept of the corporate cul-de-sac, where you actually create vulnerabilities within your system. Windows is not to be doing that right now. I think Azure has started and Amazon. But you create spaces in the cloud where some data will be thrown at the guys so that they can come at it. And then we use that to isolate that place and use it like a lab to study the intrusion and what they are trying to do and cage all the influence. Influence will be in the future very important for cybersecurity leadership because it's a useful adversarial tool. It will be a useful counter intelligence tool. And another one is when you are beginning to have anti-forensics. When criminals start from understanding forensics, they understand cyber forensics. So they start designing the crime with the view to be oblivious or transparent so that they are like water, or you can't even plant, so that our forensics process and tools can't even capture their existence. So we need to go influence, because now, and then they go anti, because so we discovered that they are anti-forensic. Okay. Yeah, can I go on? So we discovered that they are anti-forensic. So we do new tools. So it is anti. When you find a new way, the criminal finds another way. So when you are going anti-forensic, we may begin to think about influence engineering, where we begin to engineer tools and techniques specifically deliberately to begin to influence the behavior of the nature of the crime and how the criminal gangs arrange themselves because of anti-forensic. The other thing is we will need influence to inspire our teams to do higher. We need to challenge the blue teams or the internal security teams and the red teams in this case, or everybody working with us to do more. Because for every single cybersecurity professional, there are about 3 or 4 criminals who are ready to do and undo. So we have to develop influence strategies to break the human limit of our teams and make them superheroes and create bigger solutions that will keep all of us safer, because our infrastructures are going to be exposed in the coming days. We're getting connected in connected cities. We're seeing water systems and sewage systems with just a single line of code being breached together, where the whole community found their sewage going into their water plant that was processed because somebody got into a computer system and opened a gateway. So we need to find a way of influencing our teams to become far more cyber resilient and go anti-fragile, which is the upper limit human response to incidents.
Another topic that I like to bring up is the concept of networking. Not networking like we started our conversation with in telecom, but networking with people. Why is that such a critical skill for cybersecurity leaders?
Yeah, because at the rate at which criminals are going again, they are networking. There are websites now, not even in the dark web, openly, where Windows vulnerabilities are described and discussed. If we don't find ways of positive networking, the cyber criminals will always network. Because if they make a single hit, it's a big deal for everybody. They understand the idea of bounty sharing, and it's a primitive way where criminals want to rob one village. And by the way, we are now a global village. The village is strong if they were attacking at individual times of the day, but if they come at once, then the village army is overwhelmed. Now, criminals are trying to engineer that kind of. There are hotbeds, some of them to the point that countries are now involved, sponsoring state-sponsored cyber criminal activity, state-sponsored terrorism. Now, we cannot just afford not to network. In fact, regulatory organizations, both in the United States and the United Kingdom and most of Europe, are now going cyber networking as a regulatory demand. For example, share information, the obligation to share. If something happens to your network, please share, because you are connected to everybody one way or the other. Just a memory stick in your laptop can bring down a whole nation's financial system. It can bring down a whole nation's electrical system. Please don't keep quiet. And those are fun. So it's water. It's the way water is to human life, or the way food is to our existence as cybersecurity professionals. We must network. Criminals are networking, and the power of aggregation is beginning to play out. We have no choice. Chris, we have to network. It will be an anathema to be a hacker and you don't have a hacking group or a hacking community where you organize private hackathons and you have hacking weekend hangout. You cannot be a GRC consultant and not belong to a GRC group that does Friday evening beer out or Friday evening sushi or dinner. We must network and grow in communities beyond the ordinary. Of course, the only challenge is that communities are domiciled on trust. But the bigger problem is that trust is not a very easy commodity to come by. Cyber professionals are naturally skeptical and paranoid, as we both know.
Yes. Yes, that is true. That is true. As we wrap up our podcast, any final advice that you would give to future cybersecurity leaders, David?
Yeah, the future is green. Groom your leadership without demand. Go for supply before the demand for it will come. Meaning, supply yourself with knowledge, expose your mind, join networks, learn and prepare. Your day will come. We are in combat zone in cybersecurity today. There is the traditional counsel I would give was the response of King David. My position is Christianity. King David, as a young boy of about 18, his father sent him, as the story goes, to go to the battlefront to check his brothers up and give them some provisions and some food. And right there, his eldest brother, Eliab, who was a much more stronger soldier, and he was already known as a war veteran, looked at him. He said, I know your heart. Who did you leave the ship with? How come you're outside here and trying to look at the war? You want to show off? And David said to him, is there not a cause? Meaning, is there not a reason? Seeing it that these uncircumcised Philistines are defiling the armies of Israel. Forgive my reference to the Bible, but that is the state we are in cybersecurity. There is a cause. CAUSE. There is a cause. And your day will come. Every bit of knowledge and capacity you grow as a professional will eventually pay off. The day of payoff, you won't be ready if you did not go to the gym every day. On the day of payoff, when your specific type of cyber leadership, your specific capacity will be required, if you are not in the gym 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day, you won't be fit for battle. But your day will come. Don't despair if you're looking for a job, you're looking for a cybersecurity role. Engage Chris as a coach. Subscribe to Chris's coaching program. Engage him. Give it 12 months, 24 months. Let him guide you, for example, as a cyber coach or anyone around you or whoever you think. But engage your muscles in advance because the day of glory will still come. Forgive me if I look motivational or I sounded like a
Well, David, thank you very much for joining us. Really appreciate it. And again, a reminder for those that are listening, share with others, because David said we need a variety of people. We need a variety of different skills, and everyone their skills that they can rely on. And we need all sorts of different leadership. David, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Chris. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. And thanks for the great work you're doing in preparing leaders in the cyber realms. We need more of you. And thank you so much for that.